So moving into deforestation, and essentially just the crappiness of cutting down trees in an area where it is most vital for trees to be, aka forests. So let's talk about that human impact. So working with middle school earth science standard 3-3 and 3-4, and basically you're going to be able to identify the causes of deforestation, both direct and indirect, explain how deforestation can lead to cause an effect within our world. So by cutting down the trees, what can happen? By saving the trees, what can happen? That sort of a thing. And then explain what the world would look like if deforestation continued at its current rate. So whole group is going to be completely within 2 videos. So take a peek. It is a lot of it's a lot of opinion, and some of it can be sad. Some of it is like, oh, well, it has to happen sort of a thing. So just be cautious. So the first one is Deforestation Explained. So it just explains what deforestation is and the impact that it is having on our planet. So this entire video is from Google Earth, and it's a time lapse. As you can see, the difference between this location in 1984 versus 2020. So there's no words to really go with it, but there are sounds. So I want you to just pay attention as it plays through, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, so make sure that you have your whole group notes completed, and then here are the champ's expectations moving forward. Since I am not here today, I expect your voice levels to really remain between a 0 and a 1, only asking those around you. Keep your movement down to a minimum, and as far as help goes, raising your hand, obviously. My sub may not 100% be able to answer your questions, so feel free to shoot me an email or a message, and I am more than happy to try to help as much as I can from a distance. So, what is deforestation? It is the permanent removal of trees to make room for something besides forests. So it's taking away forests so that we can add in more room for agriculture, grazing, using the wood itself, the timber as construction supplies, fuel, construction themselves, and manufacturing. We tend as humans to take away the most significant portions of our earth in order to make more things for ourselves. Forests typically cover more than 30% of all of Earth's land surface. So remember, almost 70% of our Earth is covered in water, so then that only leaves 30% of the rest of it for land, and then 30% of that small portion should be forests. And our Earth maintains a specific homeostasis independently before we intervene for very good reason. So there's reason why 30% of our land needs to be covered by forest. So there are direct causes to deforestation and indirect causes to deforestation. The direct causes tend to be more of those like it happens because nature just wills it to. So that means natural causes such as disease that wipes through a forest, hurricanes, fires that, like, if it's just dry outside, one decent lightning bolt and there you go, you got a forest fire going, parasites, which again is a disease, and then floods. These all happen naturally. So those are direct causes. Indirect causes of deforestation comes down to us, why we choose to get rid of our forests. So this includes agricultural expansion, cattle breeding, timber extraction, mining, oil extraction, dam construction, infrastructure development. Basically, ways to make our lives quote unquote easier, but yet it still causes our earth to no longer be within that balance. So why is deforestation such a big deal? Why do we sit here and we talk about it and we focus in on it for a while? Well, it's because without our forests, we then start going through climate change and an increase in greenhouse gases. We naturally are just expelling out greenhouse gases when we breathe, but it's the job of our forests and other plant matter to take in any of those greenhouse gases and basically exchange it for like gases that allow us to live the way we should. So if we're taking that out, plus when you cut down a tree, you're actually releasing a lot of carbon back out into the atmosphere. So that. Desertification. By taking away any sort of plant matter, trees, all that kind of stuff, you're essentially leaving just the soil, which easily can dry out because I use the example of my backyard. I don't have any grass right now, so when it rains, the water just runs away essentially because there's nothing extra to hold in more moisture beyond just what the soil itself can hold. So on one decently nice day, enough wind, warm enough temperatures, all of my soil dries up because there's nothing holding on to that excess moisture. And then eventually you get a couple of those days in a row, and now half of my yard is over in my neighbor's yard because it's so dried out, the wind just blows it away, and that's how we get erosion. And eventually, just minimal amounts of moisture kept in there turns it into a desert. We learned that the Gobi Desert in China is expanding because of desertification. So, kind of a big deal. Soil erosion, again, if there's nothing there to hold in excess moisture and divert water toward where rivers and streams are meant to be, it then just kind of starts running wild wherever it wants to, and it starts to eat away at the soil that is there. Fewer crops. Oddly enough, by getting rid of trees for agriculture, you leave minimal crops that can actually grow there. A lot of forests can provide the proper nutrients for other more native crops to actually be able to do what they need to do in order to survive and things like that. So fewer crops. Flooding. My backyard, I have a lake instead of a yard because when there is excess moisture like we have been getting in more recent days, it just pools because it's where it wants to be at that point in time. So it causes for more flooding. And then finally, wildlife relocation. We talked about this earlier too, where we get at least one mountain lion sighting in West Fargo because we have taken over where they used to live. And animals obviously don't know the difference between what is human, quote unquote, land versus what is their land. So then we get all that invasive species and everything we talked about in ecology last year. It's such a domino effect by just taking away trees in plant life that it doesn't end well. Climate change, greenhouse gases, things like that. So like no trees to absorb carbon dioxide, kind of a big deal. Leaves actually, because of their green color, reflect back quite a bit of the UV rays that are entering into our atmosphere, to where if we get rid of leaves, there's nothing to reflect it back like a mirror back out into the universe, so it stays here. Dark dirt absorbs rays, causing the ground to become much, much warmer. That is why, like, now that we've just gotten over winter, hopefully, the fact that the bright, crisp white snow piles are still kind of sort of around, but the really icky, dirty, dark ones have completely melted because dark holds in that that heat that allowed it to melt the snow, and now it's gone, versus white reflects it, so it doesn't hold on to as much. That's why in the summer you tend to wear lighter colors versus dark colors, because dark colors just hold in that, absorb those thermal radiation rays a lot easier than light colored clothes that are able to reflect them back. Desertification and soil erosion really go hand in hand. This is a picture from Africa that shouldn't be like this. It should be a full blown out savanna, but because we've gotten rid of quite a few of the trees, this is what happens. So desertification and soil erosion is a process by which fertile land becomes desert, typically as a result of drought, but deforestation and inappropriate agriculture also play a part in it. So by removing the roots and the trees, you just leave the soil bare, and it's loose soil because it has to go in between all of the root systems and things like that, to where when you extract the root systems, it leaves empty space. So wind and other elements then take over and then move the soil, dry it out, or wash it away. It's just where those little bluffs are is where, tree systems have been able to stay in their root systems, to where the dirt is able to cling in a lot easier, versus where there are now little valleys is where root systems have been extracted from, which allows the wind and the water to flow more freely and move that soil away. Fewer crops. Again, it seems so like, oh, well, we're removing forests so that we can add more like agricultural space. Again, fewer trees means there's less water in the air and in the soil. Transpiration just isn't happening anymore. Drier soil and harsher sunlight then leaves it to where the soil just is not able to do what it needs to do in maintaining moisture to allow for crops to actually thrive and survive. And plus, if we are allowing for desertification to start occurring, we're now blowing away that nutrient topsoil, which holds all of the food necessary for plants to really do what it needs to do, to where we have issues. And then because we're also adding in more space for livestock is just eating it. Again, cows are not as worth it as we lead it to believe. So flooding can happen because if we take away the forest root systems, again, we're just allowing water to flow freely wherever it wants instead of having obstacles like roots and trees and things like that it has to try to get past. Plus the roots and the plant matter takes in quite a bit of that loose water. So if we take all that away, we then allow just the water to run freely downhill, which then brings in a lot of that soil sediment and erosion and things like that, blocking off waterways and just nowhere else for the water to go to where it piles up, and then we start having a bigger issue on our hands. So rainy seasons in areas where there's a lot of deforestation occurring does not end well. And then finally, wildlife relocation. This was taken back in 2020. This is a screenshot of what was going on in Rendezvous Park. And at that point in time, I lived like 2 blocks away from Rendezvous. But there's a mountain lion, as you can see, just hanging out in the trees because we have started impeding upon where wildlife lives. Their environment's taken away. They are not able to relocate as quickly and swiftly as we would like them to because natural instincts take place with them versus us being able to be like, oh, I can't drive this way anymore because the road is no longer there. It's just, it's like that, but it's not as easy, obviously, for animals to truly understand. So we ourselves here in West Fargo are seeing a lot of this. Now, deforestation isn't as big of a thing for us because, let's admit it, there's not a lot of trees in North Dakota to begin with, but what little trees and habitats we are taking away now is forcing animal life to relocate to a point where it is now relocating, quote unquote, into our living areas. So those are just some of the effects of deforestation and how it can impact humans, but how we are essentially impacting other life around us. So make sure you have your notes complete. There is a exit slip for you. So make sure that those get done. If you have any questions, shoot me an email or a message, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. Thanks, guys.